$230 million. That's how much the New York Yankees spent last year, according to USA Today, to pay for their 25 players to be on their roster. And how is this even able to happen? How can a team spend that much money on just themselves? And this happens because of the salary cap system that is used in the MLB right now. They have a salary system that sets up that bigger teams can spend more money than the smaller teams if they're able to support the funds. And this makes it unfair for the smaller teams because they're usually unable to big names as a result of it. And people wonder if this is good for the game, if it's okay to do this, and if it can be fixed and how it would be fixed. So why is this a problem right now? Currently, the Major League Baseball uses a soft cap system, which means they can spend as of this year, $136 million on a team, and after that, they have to start paying a luxury tax for everything they spend. As we said earlier, the Yankees' payroll was $230 million, and you can compare that to the Houston Astros, who spent just $22 million last year for their team. And this is interesting because Alex Rodriguez, one of the highest paid players in the MLB, made $29 million last year, which means he was worth $7 million more than the entire Houston Astros team. And this causes more problems because as teams begin to get more and more players and more successful, they usually get better than the smaller teams. They pay the taxes over $136 million, and it's very hard to reach this limit because it's such a high number. And because of this, only a few teams, the teams who make the most money, ever have to pay it. But this ends up benefiting the large teams because they're making all this money from baseball, they're able to use that money and put it towards their players, and that gets them better teams. And teams like the Yankees, who have historically been good, have a better fan base and more money to use, so it doesn't bother them that they have to pay a small fine to have all these huge players on their team. And the smaller teams just can't afford to do it because they don't have the funds to support. And one of the biggest ways people get money is through ticket sales. And if your team is bad, usually they're unable to get the tickets to be sold for them. But teams like Boston, Angels, they have sellouts almost every game, and they're able to use that money to buy more players. So, why is this not able to be changed? Why can't they just say, alright, let's implement the cap and start doing it? One of the biggest problems is the entire Yankee organization, according to BleacherReport.com, has threatened to sue Major League Baseball if they ever decided to use the hard cap. And not only that, the Players Union, which is all the players in the Major League Baseball, would most likely go on strike, which would cause a big problem for Major League Baseball. So this puts them in a tough situation because they don't know whether or not they should do it or not, or change it. According to ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports, the Yankees have used 96% of all luxury revenues, which means of all the millions of dollars paid as a luxury tax, Yankees represent 96% of that. And this is crazy because of all the good teams that there are, like only a couple of them are actually going over this limit of $136 million. And the Yankees, year in and year out, have to pay that fine because they're the ones that are going over. And they don't seem to mind it because since 2002, when the luxury tax was first introduced into the MLB, the Yankees have made the playoffs every single year. So obviously, paying that extra buck tends to help them out. So how did the MLB start with this system? They've always had some type of salary cap system, usually been the soft cap, which is what they have now. And in 2002 is when they added the new luxury tax. And with this luxury tax, the first time you go over the limit of, let's say it's $136 million for this year, they have to pay 20% everything they go over. So if they end up using $156 million and going $20 million over, they have to pay another $4 million in luxury tax, which for a big team, that's nothing to them, just chump change. And the way that Major League Baseball sees it as, it's just a big business, and if the big teams want to spend money, they should go for it because it just makes Major League even more money. And as they do this, the bigger teams can advertise more, which ends up bringing them even more profits in as they get more and more of their name out there. And there's nothing they can really do about it as long as they keep making money. MLB's never going to change it, so it makes it hard for them to do anything. So obviously they need to change. This is ridiculous because every other sport, currently major sports in the United States, use a salary cap. Hockey, basketball, soccer, all of them do it. And obviously, like, if it's working for them, it could work for Major League Baseball as well. It'd just be easier if they use the same regulations, the same rules as other sports, so it's not an unfair advantage for the bigger teams. I think it would be better if they just had one set number, and once they reach that number, they can't go any higher for their team. And this would also be good for the fans because it would help lower the ticket prices, because if they only owe their players, let's say $70 million instead of $150 million, it's all they have to do is sell a certain amount of tickets, and then after that, they've already paid the players back, so it doesn't matter. And obviously, from a fan's point of view, it adds parity to the game, which is what every person wants as a fan. You want it to be a level playing field. It's better if, like, the small market teams are able to compete with the large market teams every single year, instead of just knowing that a set 6 teams are going to win the World Series, because it's just not fun when it's like that. And that's not to say that a small market team can't win. I'll take the Oakland A's in 1986, for instance. They had a GM called Billy Beane, and he introduced a new system where instead of paying big money for the biggest names, they would instead go after the players with the best statistics and people who are most likely to get on base. And using this strategy, they ended up having an incredible team, and as a result, won the World Series. And it's been a widely used philosophy since then. And Perry Norris, a fanatic of the sport, was quoted saying, "Maybe star athletes would try harder if they didn't have such whopping salaries. Maybe making salaries based more on performance would help." And I definitely agree with this, because there's these players that they'll just have terrible years, but they're still given $20 million to do that. And it seems like if they played more on performance, that they might actually do better. And if we end up getting the salary cap in, I think my Royals might finally have a chance to win the World Series again, because it seems like they never had a chance since they have no money to buy players. So now that you know a little more about salary caps and what they're all about, I think you can really make a better judgment decision on what they are, how they are used, and how it affects the game. Because I mean, obviously, it has an impact on the game. It's favoring large market over the small market, and in my opinion, it's not good for the game. It doesn't add parity. It doesn't make it a level playing field. Unless the MLB wants to change it, it'll never have to do. But you really have the power to decide now if you think that a salary cap should be used in Major League Baseball. Because, I mean, some people, they'll go both ways, but I am a firm believer that a system with a set salary cap would help be the best for baseball. Hopefully, it won't be known one day, but hopefully one day they'll change it and Major League Baseball will be better as a result of it.